new government is elected at the election, how are things actually going to work? Parliament's made up of two houses. For something to become law, it has to make it through both. So let's start where most laws start, in the lower house. It also goes by the name the House of Representatives, if you're feeling a bit more formal about it. The lower house is important because it actually decides who runs government, depending on who gets a majority of seats in there. A seat, also known as an electorate, is made up of around 110,000 voters living in the same area. So you and everyone you live near get to select a local member to represent you in this chamber. There's going to be 150 of them all up, one for each electorate in the country. It's also where you'll find two of the most powerful people in Australia, the Prime Minister and the Opposition Leader. The Prime Minister is basically Parliament's top dog. They get to choose who becomes a minister, the people who are making decisions about things like housing, the cost of living, environment, education, and more. All that kind of stuff. The Opposition Leader gets to choose shadow ministers, who are basically spokespeople for particular issues, in this case known as portfolios. Most importantly, the leaders have a pretty big impact on what their party's priorities are. Fun fact, while the Prime Minister and the Opposition Leader are the leaders of their parties, we don't actually pick them out at the election, because this isn't the United States. They're selected by their colleagues voting for them in what's called the party room. Yes, but more like this. Like all politicians in the lower house, the opposition leader and the PM are local members first. Some local members who were in Parliament before have actually lost their seats recently because some electorates have been demolished since the last election. But a new one has been created in WA. Is that West? That's West, right? Yeah. Created in WA. To form a government with just your side, called majority government, you need to win at least 76 seats. But sometimes you're going to have to band together with another party to get there. That's called being in a coalition. The most famous one is between the two biggest conservative parties, the Liberals and the Nationals. They've been together for more than 75 years. But if you're not looking for something kind of serious right now, there's always minority government, where a number of different parties and independents will strike an agreement without having long-term ties to each other. Having a majority makes it way easier to be in government though, because you can pretty much automatically vote your bills through the lower house. Bills are draft versions of laws. They only become the real thing if they get voted through both houses of Parliament. Enter the Senate. The Senate is the upper house of Parliament, designed to be a house of review, basically designed to keep the government in check. It can also amend or change the bills from the lower house. Again, it's way easier to get your bills through and on the way to being law if you've got a majority in the Senate. But that hardly ever happens there, and that's kind of the point. The whole idea is that the Senate is really a check on the government passing whatever it wants, and a lot of wheeling and dealing goes on in the Senate. That's because the government needs the votes of the crossbench. The crossbench is made up of politicians who aren't part of the major parties, so minor parties like the Greens, One Nation, or independents who aren't associated with a party. There have been plenty of times where minor parties, independents, and the opposition have compromised, agreeing to vote for legislation to get to something they want in return. But not all the time. Once a bill has been voted through the Senate, there's just one more step before it becomes a law. The Governor-General, who represents the King in Australia, signs off on it, and it becomes law.